Good to go. Okay, I'm going to call the Select Board meeting, regular Select Board meeting of Tuesday, June 12th to order. First item on our agenda is approval of the agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
And are there any changes anyone wishes to make to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the agenda as drafted, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, next is approval of our minutes of our May 22nd regular Select Board meeting.
I'll move again.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any amendments to the meeting minutes?
No, oh my God, they were so comprehensive.
They were very good. It was a lot to capture.
Okay. So, compliments to the minutes taker. All in favor of approval of the minutes as drafted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Next is citizen comments. Is there anyone here for something that's not on the agenda? Okay, then next is Glenda on a proposal for new state historic marker for Court Square.
Yeah, thank you for putting me on your agenda. This is something that I hope will be non-controversial and will be kind of fun. I've just retired from a number of years, 30 years in fact, on the State Advisory Council for Historic Preservation. And in recent years, we've had a very active program of approving state historic markers. The state has revved up its program. And it struck me that this particular proposal was something that people should know about, and also was something that was a lot more important and much more interesting than most of the historic markers we've been approving. And I do have copies of the proposed text for the marker. The story is one that was known for a long time, but I didn't know the source. I had come across it years ago, and first I thought it was in Peter Langrock's book about Addison County history, and it wasn't. Peter didn't know about this. But it was cited by William Lloyd Garrison in the 19th century. It was considered important enough that the state legislature actually voted a cemetery marker for Judge Harrison, or Harrington rather, over his grave in Clarendon, but nobody goes down to his cemetery in Clarendon to read that grave marker. At one point, the state of Vermont proposed that this would be put on the facade of the State Pavilion for the 1893 Chicago Fair. And then they decided, well, no, they wouldn't do it. So it got lost in the 20th century. And it strikes me now that this story about freeing a slave, which ties in very nicely with Middlebury's history of abolitionism, is a very appropriate thing right now. The state is setting up, or has set up, an African American history trail. Middlebury is already on that trail because of Alexander Twilight, and this would reinforce the story of Middlebury and its interracial history. I consulted with the state about this text, and they were very enthusiastic about it. And also, I have promised endorsements from the Sheldon Museum and from Professor Bill Hart in the history department at the college, if that was anything that you would like. But basically, the state would pick up the whole cost of this thing. It would cost us nothing. And they would organize the installation as long as it was within the state right-of-way. The proposed location would be on Court Square, which is where the original courthouse was and where this trial took place. There's already a state historic marker on the square. to Emma Willard. And so I checked with the state people to see if they had any objections to putting 2 markers on the square. And they said, no, not really, though they could also foresee moving Emma Willard's down to in front of her house, if the town would prefer that. Otherwise, the logical place for the marker would probably be the upper end of Court Square, across from the Victorian Courthouse, so that we don't have 2 markers right next to each other. Though the stories tie in a way, because this also points out that the old courthouse was the first home of the Female Academy in Middlebury. And that, of course, is what brought Emma Willard to town in the first place. It's a lengthy process that we would get into. The state would have to review and approve the proposal. And then they negotiate and determine the final text. They choose the exact location. They commission the casting. And then it stays several years in the pipeline because they have about a 2-year backlog in their budget for these historic markers. But since the marker would be on town property, it seemed to me that the most appropriate applicant would be the town of Middlebury, and it would give it the most weight, even though, as I say, the state's very enthusiastic about doing this. Anyhow, and it's why I'm bringing it to you. If this is something that the town would care to sponsor and apply for, then I'd be happy to complete the work on the application as the state would require it, and I would turn it over to Kathleen to submit for the town of Middlebury. But I think this story of Judge Harrington being approached with a slave owner who wants to reclaim his runaway slave and asking for proof of ownership, and the guy presents his bill of sale, and the judge says that doesn't cut it, and he says, well, okay, what would you accept? And he says, nothing short of a bill of sale from God the Father Almighty, and frees the slave. It's very important because in 1804 there wasn't much of that going on. And it really became a very important part of the state's lore. And as legal historians claim, those are some of the most famous words ever to come out of a courtroom. So that I think it would be a fun thing to have up there. And in a way, I think it appeals to our better selves to cite that kind of a story from our history. So I place it in your hands. And if you would care to consider that, I would appreciate that very much.
Okay, and Kathleen has your contact information?
Yes.
And questions from the board?
Yeah.
How did they agree to let you retire? No, I mean, I'm looking at this.
Oh.
This is a fantastic story, and I'm thinking nothing short of something signed by God Almighty himself would keep me from agreeing to this.
So we are honoring the justice who
Did-
presided on that day, right?
Yes.
Do you know any history about that slave himself?
About the slave owner? No.
The slave himself?
And I don't know anything about the slave. I don't know the name.
Any history at all?
And it's been, scholars have had a difficult time even pinning down the exact date. They finally they got to June 1804, which seems pretty specific, but unfortunately the Supreme Court records from that period have disappeared. And the court was an itinerant court at that time. That's why they were meeting in Middlebury, in the Addison County Courthouse at that time. So we don't have the court record, so we don't have those details.
Thank you for doing this. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I didn't know the history. I really appreciate it being brought to our attention, and I love its connection to Emma Willard also, and
Yeah.
I think it will be fantastic.
I think it's something the town should be really proud of in their past. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So do
We need a motion, right?
It's up to the board. If you want to act on it
Motion
tonight?
That we approve the submission of the application. Can I pause a minute? Kathleen, are you okay if that comes from the town time? Is it?
Well-
Basically,
He's going to do everything and hand it to Kathleen, so we would need,
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the submission of the application on behalf of the town of Middlebury to the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation for a historic site marker pending successful resolution of any issues related to the final location.
Second. Oh, you, Farhad. can-
okay.
I mean, I'm wondering if the wording could be a little stronger, that instead of just approve, support the submission,
Yeah, makes sense.
or approve with strong support, or something like
Enthusiastically
that, I think it would be.
I will accept that amendment to my motion.
Okay. Any other comments? Then all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Well, Professor,
Thank you. I'll
you've
be
got a mission now.
communicating.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. I think you were still in high school, but there is a time capsule buried up there about, either, the early 1980s, if not earlier than that. And just artifacts of what was going on in the town at that time, because, like I say, your class might have been involved. I know some of my kids were in the band that was there at MUHS, but there is a time capsule buried near that first monument.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So think back on your cronies in the class of 1980 and see what you can find out.
Might find it, yeah. Karen?
Good evening. I'm not here for anything nearly as exciting, unfortunately. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here from Vermont Gas to request the Select Board grant Kathleen permission to execute an easement on Jackson Lane, which is owned by the town of Middlebury, for Vermont Gas to install 2 inches of distribution mainline pipe to provide natural gas service to the 30 apartments that are located there. We've had an application there for over a year now, and we've worked with the Public Works Department and the Water Department to avoid their lines, and so we're good to go, and that's why I'm here tonight. And we've drafted the easement exactly like we did the easement on this property as well, so Benj Putnam has looked at it and approved it as well. So I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
Kathleen, were there any issues from either Bill or Benj?
So you worked with Dan Werner
And Bill
and the
has-
Water Department.
Yep, and Bill has reviewed it in the
went-
field.
Worked through several issues.
Yes,
To get it to this point.
exactly.
This has been circulating since about April
Yeah.
with staff.
So now we've resolved all the issues? Questions of the board? Pleasure of the board?
Well, I'd make a motion, authorize our town manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the easement deed granting an easement to Vermont Gas on portions of Pinewood Road and Jackson Lane as outlined.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
And then the second one is to authorize our town manager Kathleen Ramsey to work with council to initiate a section 1061 process for the conveyance of the town-owned land.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay,
Great, thank you.
thank you. Dave?
So the ongoing saga of the David Page Cottonelle site. We'd been asking the state of Vermont to come and take a look at the site because they kept saying we need to clean it up, we need to clean it up. So on May 8th, they actually came and took a look at the site and realized that it wasn't maybe as big as they were thinking. Anyway, the long and the short of it is...
Speak louder, please.
Okay. The long and the short of it is that They want us to take 3 more samples within the easement where the gravel walkway goes to the Eckinger-Jackson property, to see if there's any more contaminants in that space, to see also if there's a geo barrier that was put in. I actually talked to Dan Werner. There is no geo technical barrier in there, so that's something that probably will have to be installed at some future date. So what they have, after we take, so I'm here actually to get approval. We have a submittal from Lincoln Applied Geology for, let me see, it's $3,000 and something, $3,586.50 to do this next level of testing. At that point, if we don't discover, I don't think we're gonna discover anything unusual. The state is actually then we came to an agreement that we would probably have to add a little bit more fencing and put up some signage. And that would be probably the end of the project at that point. I'm not sure. We have to come up with an action plan, a containment action plan. So after this testing is done, we would hire Lincoln Applied Geology to submit a plan of action to contain it, to the state. They would review it. I think we can actually ask for public comments on it. I believe that's a voluntary decision on our part. Once that information is collected and it's finalized, then we can actually implement it. Whether that happens this year or next year, I really don't know. But I think it's coming to a conclusion that is not going to require that we actually clean it up at this point. But any future development that is done on that site, they would have to take the responsibility of cleaning it up. So.
Okay.
So I'm actually here to get approval for this additional $3,500 and change to do this next step.
So we have money somewhere to pay for this, right?
In the FY19 budget, David and I planned for this.
Okay. Okay. And so the plan that we'll have to come up with will require some more money?
Probably,
We have to come up with a plan.
probably, and I will, once we finish this to see whether there's any more contaminants, then we'll have a better idea of the picture of what that involves. What that might be involved. So then I would get a quote from Lincoln Applied Geology to create that plan for us.
Did they give us any idea what's involved with cleaning the site
Yeah, I
up?
was wondering that.
And like, what we're talking about? No.
Well, actually, there's a lot of ledge there, so that the soil depth is probably less than 6 inches. But there's a lot of trees and there's a cliff, and so if they really want us to clean it up, we'd have to take all those trees out and take all that soil out. It may destabilize part of that site by doing that, because I think the trees and the roots are actually holding a lot of it together. So we really don't want to go there at this point.
Yeah.
So I think they realize that, and it's not any imminent danger to anybody at this point, and it hasn't been for quite a long time. So just, we do have a significant amount of fencing at this point, but there's probably another 20 feet that needs to be added to bring the fencing all the way up to a concrete barrier at the parking lot behind the back there. And then when the water level is low on Otter Creek, you can actually access inside that foundation through a opening where there used to be a door. I mean, we actually need a stepladder to get in there, but I think a teenager could figure out a way to get there. So we'll probably have to put
I've
some.
gotten there.
You've been there? So we'll probably have to put some kind of, fence or barrier at that particular spot also. Yeah.
Any other questions for Dave?
I'll make the motion
Okay.
to approve the Lincoln Applied Geology work plan for a total cost of $3,586.50, and authorize our town manager to sign the contract.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay,
Great.
thanks, Dave.
Thank you, appreciate it.
bike and ped.
The Exchange Street.
This is the Exchange Street. This is the next round of a grant. And this is, are you doing, you or Chris, or?
I,
Written. Yeah.
previously, Josh Donabedian of the Addison County Regional Planning Commission had been doing our grant applications for us for this
Yeah.
grant program. Familiar with the work of Kevin Russell, who used to work for the Agency of Transportation in the Bike Ped program. And he now is doing private consulting, and he is available to help with this grant application and hopefully improve its competitiveness and just do a little refresh for us. So the next, what I'm suggesting would be our next proposed application is $375,000 to take us from Catamount Park to a point just north of Agrimart. And that would be a total project cost estimated at $375,000 with a $300,000 80% share by the state and $75,000 or 20% by the town, and propose that we divide that into 4 years of funding in the capital budget.
Questions?
I presented this plan to the infrastructure committee, and that they endorsed it.
Okay,
It
no
seems-
questions? Pleasure of the board?
I'm ready to pass the motion. That's,
Okay.
Get first, please.
make, that's what I meant. Make, and then I'll eagerly
we'll
pass
pass
it.
it, yes.
To authorize the submission of a 2018 V-Trans Bike Ped Grant Program application for $375,000, including the town's match of $75,000, to fund a 1,500-foot segment of the Exchange Street Bike Ped path from Catamount Park to Cabot Creamery.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
And I'll also move that we sign the Select Board letter of support for the 2018 Bike Ped Program Grant application.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
What's the deadline for this? again?
June 22nd.
Do you want other letters of support?
That would be great.
Okay, I'll get them.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
This would be great. We failed last year, but we'd been getting them right along before last year, right? And if we
But
could,
we proposed the whole.
we tried to get the whole thing last year, yeah. And
So we're taking a different approach.
We hope we're better positioned with a smaller grant application, and since we're poised to go to construction next year on the on the first section,
Yeah.
hopefully that will give us some more credibility.
This feels a little bit better too with the town match portion. And in my opinion, just given what we're currently spending on sidewalks, and may take us longer to get there, but we'll get there eventually.
Once we get started on it, does the turnaround from grant to actually continuing the construction speed up? Or is that a pretty
Fingers crossed.
cut and dried process that it takes that long every time?
Well, we did get some acceleration on the 2016 portion. Remember, we had two
Right,
grants, a
and we're doing them both
2014,
together now.
2016, and we're doing them both together 3 years later.
Yeah. Okay. Next, Fred's joining us to talk about economic health, our next steps. So if you want to join us, Fred?
Okay. I didn't know I was doing a presentation, but,
Well, I don't know if you're doing a presentation, but part of a discussion.
okay.
Right. So I'm happy to take the lead if you'd like. Fred Fred and I have in your packet a proposal for a next step of an economic health committee by appointing 3 people who have come forward with an interest in economic health, with a clearly defined scope of work of what they would be considering over the summer, and then coming back to you with a report in the fall. This is something I worked with Fred to develop,
Yeah.
and it builds on the work of the Economic Health Task Force of last year.
We kind of build on what they did and look at some new information and reconstitute a committee with some new people on it, get some new ideas, and bring those back to you as possible tools for the town to use. Yeah, I guess the only thing I would comment on is the date, and I'm sorry this just hit me today, that maybe giving us a little more time, given people's constraints over the summer, maybe push this out to November, come back to you in November. I forget the dates of your meetings in November, but maybe the first meeting, so it doesn't hit the holidays.
Well, that would work out well earlier in November so that we could take any budgetary impacts in mind that may be recommended.
This actually builds upon our strategic retreat where we talked about maybe combining efforts with ACEDC as far as the economic development platform, given their expertise in the area and that there's full-time staff there.
So I think it's great. I really think that we need to get our Economic Health Committee in place. You know, November feels
A
like
little far off.
way out there. So I'm wondering if there's anything that we might put on our website in an interim basis, you know, like to help people. So I wonder if you could see us taking a few minor steps that could still be helpful for those that are seeking, I don't know, even a link to you or to
Well, we
what-
do have a link
We do have,
right on
that's
the homepage,
And we link to you as well.
right under Community, and then
so,
Addison County Economic Development Corporation.
yeah, I see that link, but I know that it was recommended to have another button that, at the top that said maybe businesses, or I don't know what the button is, but when you pull that down, it would be a whole menu of different things that you
Mhm.
could go to, resources that you could go to. You know what I'm saying?
And this is on your current town website or the
Yes,
new
on
one
the-
that's being developed?
On the current town
Yeah.
website. So we have home departments, meetings, residents, public notice, community. So when you pull down community, as Kathleen is showing you there, you know, you can see the link to ACEDC. But do people know to go to that?
Mhm.
And is there a faster path that we should have, you know, from the homepage?
So there's also work being done with the Experience Middlebury, Better Middlebury Partnership website that also provides an opportunity in a shorter time frame to get the message out with regards to assets and resources that Middlebury has available, whether you want to participate as a community member or you want to participate as a business. That website has to be done by August because of the grant that they're receiving. So you will have, prior to November, a place that is being marketed and shared in a way that will be attractive and people will know what to do with it when they get there.
Yeah,
So you'll have activity.
okay.
It probably is more strategic to have folks thinking about this work along with the work of Experience Middlebury and the Middlebury Partnership together to make sure that you're getting most back for your buck. And making sure that those conversations are happening in conjunction, we think is important.
Yep, I understand that. So what do you see from our homepage in turn? I see we have a link to Experience Middlebury too under Community. Is that enough? Like, is it okay?
Yeah, and that's something that we can, once this process, those are easy
Mhm.
you know, easier fixes, obviously,
Mhm.
but it's good to have that conversation collectively,
Mhm.
making sure you're using the right tool for the right reason, or the right approach. It's hard to get, you know, if people are going someplace, if you have marketing out there, sending people to a certain URL,
Yeah.
hit them there, rather than just having to try to get them to go to a different URL.
Uh-huh.
So you gotta figure that stuff out.
Yeah, that's what I'm after.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
I think I would be more comfortable having a committee working on that
Mhm.
and looking at where we're funneling people to and from. 'Cause maybe as a business, as a prospective business, you might be on the Experience Mid website as opposed to on our town governance website. And so I'm not sure that we have the answers for that right now to make those kind of prescriptive decisions. I'm looking at a process that we can maybe endorse to at least get rolling and moving forward on this. And I think that, you know, from where I sit, we have an agency that works this, you know, the development on a full-time basis, and to work with them and partner with them. They're right here in Middlebury. Seems to me like something that we should endorse and get going on, especially if we have some committee members that are willing to start, and then if they can recruit some additional. But we were holding up waiting to get the full committee, and it's just not gonna happen until we get something started. And I'd like to see us get something started.
Is there any other who from the select board is interested in, I guess let me put this out there. I'm interested in, no one else is, or if there's.
I was gonna say the same thing. I would be open for you.
Okay.
So,
I
consider,
just, my time is
Well,
hard, but.
I'd like to see Farhad, because you're so, you've already got a very responsible committee. The amount of time that you spend with the infrastructure committee, I think if we really get going on this could be a time, this
None
could
of us can
be,
attend.
Yeah.
anybody
It's
can
hard-
attend.
It's hard for me to let go, that's
I know.
we should ask Fred.
He did well. He did a good job.
We should ask Fred if he wants me on there or not.
That's fine. And are these the
I'd be happy to.
priorities that you'd like us to look at as listed here? Those,
If you could all look at the priorities were retaining, expanding retail opportunities. I don't know if anybody's been down my road, but one of my tenants has now notified us that they're leaving, Sears stores is leaving Middlebury. They're closing like 125 more stores. We've got, a diner going out. It's not all related to the bridge project. It's just the
Bad timing.
economic environment that we're in right now. And so I think that personally, the town needs people that are focused on what can we do for retail opportunities. So basic analysis of economic viability, tax increment financing. This is something that we were looking at as to, can that help us bring opportunities to the downtown as far as the expansion, and educating us on that. Use of the remaining Middlebury Business Development Fund. Use of Vermont Community Development Program grant, revolving loan funds, and then, like Laura was talking about, the effective use of the website, and how we can promote economic health. Are there other priorities that you would want added to that, or?
The only thing I would ask is that the work of the task force be strongly considered in decisions and thoughts of this group. Only because I think we had a pretty good process, and maybe not all the right answers, but.
Do you not see it reflected in the list?
Oh, no, I do.
Okay.
I just,
Mhm.
as you consider these things, just keep in mind the work and the consideration that we put in prior to it.
Mhm.
No, I mean, it's, I mean, we recommended a revolving loan fund with the remainder of the business development funds. But that was based on our limited knowledge, and maybe you have.
You might have another idea.
You might have other ideas that we didn't even know about at the time,
Mhm.
so,
We've already had a request for $1,000, was it, no, how much was it from the Makery?
1,000.
1,000, right, so, like, we could get those kinds of odd requests again, and how would we respond to them? So maybe you have a recommendation related to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would, just also like to comment that I drove through Bristol today, on my way to Montpelier, and, there are open storefronts
Storefronts
in
there.
downtown Bristol.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not going through bridge projects, so it, I think the bridge project's becoming a little bit of a scapegoat. It's, the downtown retail is suffering all over, not, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it comes down to is how do we retain and expand retail in this Amazon world? And what is it they do?
Yeah, sorry. Do you guys remember when Calvi's closed?
Mhm.
And everybody was all up in arms that it was the end of downtown, and
Lazarus.
things changed, and
Yeah, when Lazarus
Lazarus,
closed, yeah.
Abrams Department Store,
Look,
things
yeah.
change and expand, and.
But those were replaced by something, but now it seems like there's nothing coming back. Once something goes, nothing is coming back.
Or the thing that occurs to me, I know that we're talking about retail, retaining retail, but if we're talking about occupancy, maybe it's a different kind of occupancy, and that's what you would inform us about, so maybe it's services,
Mhm.
Or it's, what do you call it, like, worker spaces, telecommuting spaces. So they're not big employers, but, they could still be providing a lot of economic viability.
But I think for a healthy retail business to survive, you need to have other healthy retail businesses to come in my opinion, to have a vibrant downtown. If one business goes on and nothing replaces it, our money is going to go out of town. People are going to spend the same money somewhere else, right? So,
When we heard that story too, one of the auto dealers was telling me one time how the loss of the Ames meant the loss of showroom traffic that they could actually calculate. And one of the other retailers, which is no longer in town, said that they would say that a certain product was not available, a product that should be readily available wasn't here, and so those people then went up to Chittenden County area, which then they knew also meant there were meals, there were some other experiences that was now shifted completely to that area. So the retail, whatever this is, it does have some significance. So the other thing I would like to add on there, though, and I'm going back to what Dave Cole often relates to, is it's not just the retail, but it's also called manufacturing, for lack of other term. What things could we make here? His world of prototyping,
Mhm.
that seems to be the type of thing that could potentially fit into a small rural New England town in the world. But what are those things that we could, our food production, the beverage producers, they're manufacturers. And so what other things could happen here in that respect? So that'd be something I'd want on there. Now, the one thing I'm looking at here, as far as, are we looking to start this off with 3 people? Because, Fahad, I think, would be an excellent person to be on this. And while Mary and Stacy obviously bring something to the table, they're both in the same organization. And so my concern is, are we potentially not having a broad enough thought? I mean, I see Mary/Stacy as one unit. They might have been a completely absurd statement. I may regret that later. But no, it's not taking anything away from the talent, but as one group, and then Fred, and then Fahad, and then decide who else beyond that. It may be, in fact, one of the others, but I want to make sure we don't limit ourselves too much as to a broad scope.
Right, well, that's their task, is really to be recruiting for that bigger, but not too big committee.
Well, no, that's why I see Fahad, I see Fred, and I see Mary Stacy
Right.
as, as three,
A thought force.
and then expanding on out of that.
Yeah, that was my understanding, was that we would just start out and then recruit others to the group pretty quickly.
So, I'll make a motion to endorse the Middlebury Economic Health Committee proposal as developed by, Town Manager Jackson and ACDC Executive Director Fred Kinney.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments?
Well, do we want to include Fahad now?
Well, I'll do that in the second part.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other comments?
No.
Do you want to
Hearing none?
address the date, or the date we're due back?
Was there a date in our,
Early November?
Oh,
How
it with
about
a-
I amend the motion to endorse the proposal as amended? How's that?
Good.
you good with it, Rod? Yeah. Okay. All in favor of the amended motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
And I'll move to appoint Fred Kinney, I'm not gonna try his last names, Mary, Stacy, and Farhan to the as initial members of the committee, with instruction to recruit and recommend up to 5 additional committee members for the board's consideration.
In early November.
No,
No?
when it's appropriate at our next,
Oh,
when appropriate in July. How's that?
So we have 4, so we're looking for 5 more after that, or?
Well, I think it was up to 5, so doesn't
It
mean.
goes up to 5, including yourself.
Okay, so 4 more.
Do
So
you- Would
nobody
you
wants
care
to
to
second?
second it?
Oh, yeah, I'll
Yes,
second.
I second. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that bad, was it?
No, actually, it was great.
Comments?
Just wanna
Here-
hang you for a bit.
Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
So
Okay,
they-
thanks,
They're
Fred.
gonna get
Okay,
started.
terrific.
They're just not gonna, they're gonna extend the deadline from September to November,
To report back on with recommendations, yeah.
November rather than September.
But in July, the makeup of the group.
Yes,
Okay,
sounds good.
thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay. All right, so Dan's gonna come up and walk us through with Heather some projects. You gotta,
Lots of infrastructure.
Okay,
My favorite topic.
oh boy. So, first item on the Infrastructure Committee meeting is an update on current projects. Chipman Park South Street project, I spoke with the construction manager this afternoon. They have done some of the yard restorations. He's waiting for his a curb contractor to come back. Sounds like they're going to be removing pavement middle of next week with a hope to pave Friday, of course, weather depending. Charles Avenue, this is a project by the high school. The temporary water system was put in on the east side of the street end of last week and tied in on Monday. And the water monitoring project, which is out by the well houses on 116 and east of there, the foundations have been installed and some of the piping is starting to be put in also. 10B, recommendation for water reservoir concrete repair bids. We put this project out to bid. This is for some repairs of the concrete reservoir up on Chipman Hill. There's some spalling of concrete on the top of the concrete lid and some hairline cracks on the sides. And the expansion joint that goes between the two cells needs to be replaced. We got 2 bids. Had only a couple other people might be interested, but only 2 submitted. GS Bolton and Kingsbury were the 2 bidders. GS Bolton is from New Hampshire. Their bid was, and they were the low bidder at $78,525. I did check with references for Bolton's work. Both of the places I talked to had very good reviews of their work. And they've also used them in repetitive business, which is a sign that they're happy with their work also. So I would need the board approve Bolton's bid for $78,525.
Any idea why such a differential between the two?
Yeah.
Yeah, the big one is the spalling on the top, item number 3, the deck, the top spalling, 36 versus 92. I mean, these are pretty small quantities. 800 square feet is not huge, and I don't get that, but
No,
it seems way out of line,
Yeah, I know. My initial thing is why is one so low? But the other question would be why is one so high? But
Right.
no
Right.
reason to disagree with your recommendation, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to award a contract to GS Bolton for the water reservoir repair project for an estimated cost of $78,525. So did you want to talk, sorry.
I'll second.
Now can I say something? You didn't mention the part about the estimated, why it's estimated. Did you want to say something briefly?
Sure.
What you told us, or-
Yeah, if you have this in front of you, the crack repair and the wall spalling is, the lineal feet is estimated. They have to pressure wash the structure, and then you'll get a chance to see how far some of those cracks do extend. They're really small. I mean, they're hairline, but they do have to notch them out. So there is some up in the air once it gets cleaned of how many lineal feet they actually are. So it's an estimated, but the price would be based on a lineal foot unit price. So when you're
Anticipate it being significantly different,
right.
but we do anticipate some additional work at some point. What did you, roofing potentially, or coating, and possibly some fencing?
Yes, the state wants us to fence the reservoir in. That's probably around 20-some grand for that. We are going to look at some kind of top coating or membrane on top of this when we get done too. So, but this is just for the repair work.
Is there a variance where it would have to come back to us?
Well, usually what the board has done, and similar to like asphalt paving projects,
Yeah.
when you approve the bid, you actually approve you can approve the unit costs.
Unit cost, and then we're good as
That-
long as it stays within that unit cost.
Right. So it's any add-on is at that unit cost.
Okay. Any other questions of Dan? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, air conditioning.
Okay. We have a proposal from Newton Electrical Refrigeration Air Conditioning, Inc., to replace the outdoor air conditioning unit, condensing unit, and the indoor evaporator coil in the downstairs boiler room. This supplies the air conditioning for the meeting room in the basement of the library. The outside condensing unit was tested. It with nitrogen, it leaks. It cannot be repaired. It uses the old refrigerant, which is no longer, those units are no longer made. And so therefore, both the inside and the outside units have to be replaced. So we met with Dennis Newton some time ago, end of May, and he provided a project cost for $3,970 to replace both units. And there's a question at the committee about maybe a Efficiency Vermont grant or whatever, but inherently, Efficiency Vermont does not see air conditioning units as energy efficient, so they don't participate in any grants for that kind of work. But sounds like it can be arrive within a week to two and then be installed fairly quickly. So requesting the board approve Newton's proposal for $3,970.
So I'll make a motion to approve the replacement of the non-functioning air conditioning condenser and evaporator coil at the library by Dennis Newton Electrical Refrigeration and Air Conditioning under the emergency purchases exception. of the town purchasing policy for a total cost of $3,970.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any comments, questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the electric will go down, right? After we install, no.
I think this unit has been there a considerable amount of time, and we're assuming there is some efficiency associated with replacing it with a newer unit.
Yeah, the previous one was, they have these seasonal energy efficiency specifications, or standards, I guess. The previous one was rated a 10 SEER, and this is a 13 SEER, so it's probably a couple of generations more efficient, whatever that means.
Okay.
But the comfort level will definitely be improved, and probably so will the air
And
quality.
because air quality is an issue down there, I hope that it improves the air quality as well as,
I don't think the air
Let's make it
conditioning
more-
unit will improve air quality.
well, they can, because it dehumidifies if it's working properly, so, and I know a cold climate air source heat pump does both air conditioning and heating, so we didn't look at that, right, because it's not a fit for this particular
So,
situation? Because
can I
of,
go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, when Dana came to the committee the other
Mhm.
day, if we chose to evaluate different options, put the project out to bid.
it would
we
be too
could-
long.
It would be too long,
Mhm.
and she's already got
She
a
needs it now.
full programming slate and a completely non-functioning space.
Mhm.
So again, we're
Stuck,
under the gun.
Okay.
And,
have to do it.
well, we
Uh-huh.
don't have to. We don't have to, but,
Well, we have to.
but,
You kind of have to.
Are you gonna do something about the outdoor condensing unit to cover it, like he's suggesting?
Yeah, yeah. And the,
Canopy or something?
yes, yeah. And the ones for the other 10 units that are, on the outside too, we're gonna try to make some metal frames to keep the ice from falling on them.
I think
Okay.
the infrastructure committee and Public Works and everyone would like to get to the point where we are not doing things on an emergency basis, but unfortunately, it happens and we have to address them, and
It just doesn't take that long to do a cold climate heat pump install. I know that, but I know that it is more expensive, so that's why I was just
but
wondering.
we, in
'cause then
theory,
you-
should put it out to bid
Yeah.
and,
Okay, got it. All right, no more labor on it.
okay.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I mean, if the board wants to, we,
I think we've talked about this before, though, and that it's a pretty significant difference in price, and then where we have a pending review of the library, it just doesn't seem prudent to spend more money until we know what we're gonna do with the library. 'Cause if we tear it all up, the payback isn't there if we're only gonna be short-term, so. And I think this is a point where sometimes our idealism for where we want to go versus what's reality for cost-benefit analysis conflict. So we have to make a near-term solution. Just payback on this is immediate with the programs. Anyways, that was my thought. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, floor repair.
Chief Dave Shaw brought to the committee a need to repair a crack in the concrete floor, which basically between the two, well, it's supported between the two buildings, and there's some change in the buildings themselves, and they moved and so forth. This crack has reappeared. I believe it's been repaired maybe once, or tried to be repaired and then opened up again. So he had a proposal from a company to do that, and I noticed in the minutes it said pending funding. So is that still up for consideration, or is there?
We
Decide that-
identified a source of funding in the capital budget for Fire Station Number 1 repairs with an existing balance of $4,750. That was an account that was established before the new fire station was built and left over, just sitting there.
You just pull another rabbit out of your hat?
Oh, my gosh.
My God.
How'd you remember that rabbit?
So we would need to request the board approve the proposal for $4,300 to Vermont Protective Coatings.
I'll make a motion to endorse the infrastructure committee's recommendation to approve the repair of the concrete floor at the Seymour Street Fire Station with the installation of a commercial grade expansion floor joint between the 1978 and 2013 sections of the building for a total cost of $4,300.
Second.
Can I just comment?
Yeah.
I think this is pretty, inexpensive insurance policy
Yeah, I was,
for preventing some
Bigger,
future
yeah.
issues.
that would be more expensive.
And again, this was not put out to bid, but this is the premier company for this type of work, and they were the ones that came in and installed the caulking that has not held up. So this is the next step. And so we did request a warranty, like how long we thought this might, were you here in Chief Shaw's absence? Do you wanna come up?
Leroy Graham, Lieutenant of the Fire Department. Chief Shaw did speak to Bruce Bowe from Vermont Protective Coatings about an additional warranty. Both Vermont Protective Coatings and M-Seal offer a 1-year warranty upon installation. He asked about the extended warranty, which would be an additional 8 to 10% depending on the length of the warranty. But Bruce Bowe from Vermont Protective Coatings said they're rarely purchased, and he doesn't think it was worth the money, so we're not asking for that.
And I would like to point out that if you read in the description of somewhere here, it lists the applications, and they're typically outside, and this application is inside undercover, so we anticipate it and not being as big of a concern as if it were an outside install. Am I correct?
Stadiums, airport
Yeah.
aprons.
Right.
So what was the reason for those cracks to develop? It's a fairly new,
The two buildings are separate units, and
Shifting.
they move differently,
okay.
you know, so. Did you see,
Yeah, I saw those.
I didn't review everything that was in the packet for infrastructure, cause I'd already looked at it, so.
So on a
Well said.
commercial expansion joint, it's just different material, or they cut it back wider and have more move?
Well,
'Cause it looks like there's some steel that they're putting in there on the edges, or?
I think it has to fill underneath also, the
I
floor.
think there's sand underneath that, and I don't think that's steel, I think that's actually like,
there's
a poly,
there's a modified foam, acrylic foam that's sprayed in and then it somewhat hardens. And then I don't know if you have it in front of you, there's like a bellows type caulk is put on.
Yeah. So
top
it's
of that.
significantly different,
so
I
it
guess
can-
is
has-
I mean, I was just
can
trying to
move.
figure out, I mean, one expansion joint's the same as another to me, so
Yeah.
looking, it's a significant difference in the material they're putting in there.
Yes, it
There's
can
not-
move more than what a
Yeah.
caulk can move.
Okay.
It basically expands the area between the buildings for which they can move independently.
Okay.
Whereas right now, there's nothing really there, other than they're butted up and they move, and the caulk that's there is not.
Yeah, just pulls it apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why wouldn't that have been installed in the first place if you kind of anticipated with two different buildings that would happen?
Well, I don't think it was anticipated that they would move that much to
That much.
crack the floor.
Vermont weather.
Yeah, old building, new building.
Yeah. Okay, do we have, the motion's on the floor, right? Seconded. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, now a sidewalk bid.
We advertised for contractors to replace sidewalks in several places around town. Developed a list of 10 places. We received bids from 3 companies, and you probably have that right in front of you. At the end of the day, Acker Construction Company was the, Acker Excavating was the low bidder at $97,000. Our budget is at about $68,000. So we truncated 3 sites on your list, number 7, number 9, and number 10, to bring their bid down to $65,200. And so the bidders were aware that we would probably be decreasing the amount of work depending on the bids to match our budget. So they were okay with that. So I'm asking the board to approve Acker's bid, and it will include items 1 through 6 and number 8 on their bid submittal.
I'll make a
Questions?
motion. I'll make a motion to award a contract to a low bidder, Acker Excavating, for repairs to 7 downtown sidewalk segments for a total cost of $65,200.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments?
Just again, was it true, there was a big variance in the amount that we had budgeted for this, and then what we have to pay for this project?
Yeah, so the
Uh-huh.
capital improvement budget, what are we up to? 60?
Well, we had
We
68,000.
had 65, or we had 68 available for this.
We're using 65 too.
But the capital improvement budget includes a little more than that, but Dan has figured in a certain amount for the testing that's required.
Right.
And he's removed that from the top
Okay.
and determined that what we have available to spend right now is the 68.
Correct.
So every year we specify a certain amount
Right.
in our sidewalk capital budget to spend, and and this will deplete it until
Next year.
FY '20, which is a whole year.
Wow.
But it does significantly repair quite a few of the,
Needed areas.
Yeah, the items that are on the top of our priority list for sidewalks.
And why is there such a big inflation in price for sidewalks now, for sidewalk repair? Is it concrete, the cost of concrete, or what is it?
I would say labor intensive.
From what I hear, the number of contractors even in the state that do flat work, concrete work, is shrinking.
Okay, I think I remember hearing that. Okay,
Labor intensive and
yeah.
Yeah.
hard on the bodies.
Do they have a machine like they do for the curbing that can do it in the future, or does that?
Haven't seen one yet, but there's a small business for somebody that.
You know it's coming out of Germany.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Okay, next is requested bid approval or proposal approval from DNF Excavating and Paving. This is for paving a path, part of the path that starts at the Mary Hogan, the north end of the Mary Hogan School sidewalk where the gravel road path goes into the warming hut. And there's a tot lot, play lot going towards the courthouse. This path starts at that little intersection and goes north about 100 feet. And then we're going to cross the drainage ditch that's in there and go to the east to the top play lot. And so what Kathleen has up there, the yellow section, is what this contract, this proposal takes care of. There's 2 culverts that need to be installed. One is on the short section in up in north and south direction, and the other one is an east-west culvert about midway to take some of the drainage water over to by the gravel driveway where the little elbow is in the drawing there. So this is for DNF to pave what's shown in yellow. The highway staff would install the 2 culverts and the gravel base, do the excavation, get ready to go, and then DNF would come in and do the fine grade and paving. So I'm requesting the board approve their proposal for $3,600.
I move it.
It's been a damp place for a while. It's time.
It's a good project. I second
Moved and seconded. This is to the area where they're putting in the little structure for picnics and
Yeah.
stuff?
No, that's.
Well,
that'll be to the
it
right.
will.
To the east.
Yeah, it'd be where
That's where the
Kathleen's
trees
pointer
have been
is.
pretty
Right,
close
but
to
it's,
where the-
it gets
yeah.
access across that water where the water was ponding in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so it makes all the sense in the world.
House and
I'm sorry?
walking from Mary
Into
Home
the
to the
court.
courthouse where a lot of people park to drop off.
And they all cut through the, yeah,
And then their boots are soaked up to the top.
yeah.
Then they complain that their boots are wet, so.
Okay, we've all experienced it. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Next is Harold Curtis Park basketball court repair. The bids received, of two of them, were well above the budgeted amount of $28,000. So the project will be postponed until funding is found. But at this point, you will need to reject the bids formally.
I'll make a motion to accept the Infrastructure Committee's recommendation to reject all bids received for the Harold Curtis Park basketball court repair project and restructure the RFP for release at a future date.
it. Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments?
Well, just how would you restructure it so that you'd get a more favorable
Well, I think when Dustin presented it at committee the other day,
project?
he had hoped
Bid.
that a couple of bidders who have more experience in this type of work would bid, and they didn't.
Uh-huh.
And so he thought bidding at a more favorable time, and also potentially increasing funding and capital budgets, and possibly changing the project slightly, so combination of the three things.
Okay, so that it was under budgeted to begin with?
Yes.
That's a
We-
possibility.
We only
Okay.
had
28,000.
right now, we only have 28,000 budgeted for the project.
We didn't know that that was too little.
And, well, no,
Oh.
we had put something
Mhm.
to bid earlier, but it wasn't the same scope.
Mhm.
It was a smaller scope project, this was a larger scope project. It was significantly more than we had budgeted, and so,
Yeah, that's too bad. I know they really wanted that project.
oh, we
Yeah.
haven't given up on it.
I know.
We're just
Mhm.
have a slight delay.
It's a parking lot project now.
No, it's no parking lot project.
Who seconded that? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Did I get that right, Bill, or?
We've done that with numerous recreation projects where they were more expensive than we could budget in 1 year. Tennis court reconstruction, where we've had to save money for 2, 3, 4 years and then do the project.
We're gonna get it done, it's just,
Yeah, I know.
Okay, next is approval of an agreement and an easement from Foster Brothers Farm. So there's two items here under this topic. The first one is to approve an agreement with them for the water monitoring project. This is out on 116 across from the Dow Farm on the west side of 116 for us to build a water monitoring building. And what they're looking for in order to grant the easement is, the meat of it is a partial release of fees charged by the mortgage lender for release of the easement from any mortgages encumbering the property. There's a $90 fee to do that, and then also any expenses associated with withdrawal of the easement area from the Vermont Use Value Appraisal Program. So they would have to contract a surveyor engineering firm to survey that area and create a formal document so that piece of land can be withdrawn. So the easement square footage is 3,503 square feet. It's not very big, but it's a process, and so they would like us to take care of that. And the third item is some drainage issues on the west side of 116. A number of years ago, we had a water leak there, which found it was a pinhole in a bell joint, and couldn't find it, and finally did. Long story short, the pipe manufacturer had a fault, and they paid for that. But anyway, there's some other drainage issues that the Fosters would like to see repaired, or I should say taken care of. And what we'll do here is we have to tap that water main and bring a water line, a service line, over to this new monitoring building. And so we would, in the same trench as that, connect a storm under drain pipe, 4-inch pipe, field drain, if you will, and connect it, or go past the new monitoring building. And then the floor drain for that building has to go out to an existing drainage swale. And so it would tie into that piece also. So not a significant amount of work, because we're trying to combine it with one trench at the same time. So that agreement needs to be approved by the board and authorize Kathleen to sign.
I'll
Be the
move
first
to
step.
accept that easement deed from Foster Brothers.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
And the second part is the easement deed itself. Basically, it is describing the 3,503 square feet, more or less. This is on the north side of their entrance driveway, west side of 116, and that's to put the monitoring building on.
I'll make a motion to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the agreement with Foster Brothers Farm as part of the town's water monitoring project.
1 second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
We'll jump to number 11 on the agenda. Planning advance loan documents for the 20-year engineering evaluation facilities planning study for the wastewater treatment plant. Very similar loan application that you saw some weeks ago for the water planning loan. The loan amount we're requesting at this time is $140,000. That's the contract we have with Tata and Howard. This is a 13-page document. Jackie has supplied information. It includes user rates, debt, total debt, and interest payments for the sewer or the wastewater fund, and all kind of questions on safeguards for accounting and so on and so forth. So when we submit these applications, the state wants the Selectboard to certify that you are submitting this application. There's a signature page that needs to go around for you all to sign, but you will need to certify that you are submitting this application, and hence by signature.
I'll move it, that we certify the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund application for $140,000 from the 20-year engineering evaluation and facilities planning study for the wastewater treatment facility.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions?
Thanks for all that detail work.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Dan, is your pocketbook empty yet?
Almost, huh?
We spent a lot of money at infrastructure committee last night.
That's where it happens.
I have a signature page if you need it.
It's going around.
Okay.
I would just take a quick minute to say we've adjusted meeting schedules for infrastructure committee to accommodate our busy June. And our next meeting is at 8:45 on the 21st. If anybody, we're gonna be talking about water and wastewater, so if anyone's interested in.
Instead of when?
Well, we would have met this Thursday,
Okay,
but we met last Thursday, and we will then meet again on the 21st.
okay.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I believe we're ready for you, Bill. Parks and Recreation Committee membership.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of review and been talking to the committee. Looks like it was expanded in 2012 to 7 members, 2013 to 8, and then 2017 to 10. And there's been additional ex officios added, and there's actually some gaps I couldn't fill in looking at minutes and stuff like that. So the committee just started talking about it and where we're at and the work that we have and subcommittees that we're doing, and kind of came up with this current plan. There are currently 8 members. We prefer to have an odd number for voting purposes, so we're just looking for somebody to fall off of that list through attrition at some point, and which would leave us with 7.
Thank you.
And I think in this scenario, there would be, there's only 3 positions that would not be appointed by the select board, which are member organizations, so.
So it seems good.
And this changed the term a little bit too, just to get some better rotation in there. To be
That's
perfectly
good.
honest, the structure that we had was a little fuzzy, so this is kind of a starting point too, to just kind of solidify
Yeah.
it.
I like that you've looked at it and that you're considering rotation of service. That's really important. Good. So have you selected your chair, or it'll come out of this now?
We have, Greg is.
Greg
still
is
the chair.
continuing as
Okay.
chair.
So,
Okay, so do you need a motion?
Yes.
I'll move that we approve the new structure for the Parks and Recreation Committee.
1 second.
any questions? So you said you're gonna try to get down to 7 eventually?
Yes.
Okay, and you just, based upon one of the at-large
One of the
dropping
one-year term at-large, at some point maybe we'll
off? Okay,
move on to better things and.
all right. Okay, any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay. Downtown Transportation Fund grant.
So in your packet, there's a draft letter to the Downtown Transportation Program asking for another extension on the Downtown Transportation Grant we have for landscape improvements over where the tunnel is going to be. In 2014, we applied for the grant and said that we would be done by 2016. In 2016, we assured them that we would be done by 2018, and this letter requests an extension of the deadline to 2021.
And we are done. In 2021.
Have you had any indication if they'll approve this?
I don't have any indication on this.
Okay. I don't want to hog all the motions, but I'm happy.
Oh, I'm good at it, I'll do it. I'll make a motion to approve the letter from the Select Board to the Vermont Department of Commerce and Community Development seeking an extension on closing out, am I on the right one?
Yes.
Closing out the 100,000 Downtown Transportation Fund grant for landscaping and site improvements to the Triangle Park section of the town green until July 2021. Wow, 2021.
One second.
Moving
You don't have to
second.
include that part in the motion.
Questions?
Well, that's what I approved.
All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Bill, a large purchase of asphalt road crack sealing.
Yes, we put $20,000 in the budget every year for crack sealing. Typically, my understanding is we haven't gone out to bid for that because there's not that many companies that do large projects like that in-state. And to get somebody out of state is either going to be hard to get them interested, or you're going to pay additional money to get them up here. So NICOM has been doing this for the last several years and basically requesting that we allow them to continue without going through a bid process because of the specialty aspect of it.
I'll make a motion to approve Public Works Operations Director Bill Kernan's request for a $20,000 purchase order to NICOM Coatings Corporation for asphalt crack sealing at various locations around town.
Second.
I understood it.
Okay.
Moved and seconded.
I think we should vote.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thanks, Bill. Hey, I don't know if you were here yet, but was recognized what a good job you did coordinating the Route 30 repairs. It looks great. Came out nice.
Appreciate the board's help with that. It was definitely the right thing to do. So
Yeah.
it turned out nice and it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you
think-
for taking that on and getting it done.
Kathleen, budget.
So you have in your packet a budget report in a new format for the general fund, and you have your May 31st comparison of expenditures to date with relationship to the target, and also your year-end budget projections. As we reported way back in February, we are going to be over budget in the highway department. Other departments are on track, so we're hoping that the estimated $70,000 in overage in the highway department will be offset by robust revenues for interest, being about $20,000 over budget. The college gift, which varies with investment revenue, is going to be about $15,000 over budget. Recreation revenue, about $10,000 over budget. And we're also going to experience some savings due to some vacancies in the police department of about $30,000. So overall, bottom line, balancing expenditures and revenue, we should be in at about target at the end of the fiscal year.
Good job.
It's a miracle.
No, it's good management.
It's, well,
Thank you, Kathy.
given the,
It's a combination of the two.
Okay.
I like your new format.
Yeah.
This is having the bar graph there to just kind of quick comparison.
Easier to comprehend.
It's really quick to comprehend where we're at. So,
Otherwise, you have to look at numbers all the time.
I like numbers.
Well, you have both, Heather.
the
You have your numbers on the
are right
left.
by the side.
I do like the charts too.
But the numbers are like
Which one do you like
this, so
better?
if you want like that.
You just decided to throw it at us, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Thanks. Okay, any questions on budget revenue, anything?
Good job.
Okay, check warrants.
We are ahead of schedule. I will motion to approve the total expenditures in the amount of $1,72,370.25, consisting of $854,286.54 for accounts payable and $218,083.71 for payroll for the period of May 23rd, 2018 through June 12th, 2018.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Okay.
Okay, town manager's report.
Okay. Property and casualty insurance. As you know, last year we went out to bid on our property and casualty insurance and received a reduction in about $100,000 in premium. In response to a recent inquiry about the town's plans for rebidding insurance, I contacted Fred Saintink of the Vermont League of Cities and Towns Property and Casualty Intermunicipal Fund, PASSIF, to discuss best practice for insurance bidding. based on the conversation with Fred and Fred's follows-up email, which is in your packet, I'm recommending that we bid our insurance every 3 to 5 years instead of annually. Net metering solar update. As a follow-up to the approval of the memorandum of understanding with Grow Solar, EDF Renewables, and Southridge Solar Project developer Charlie Kirker's interest in exploring the possibility of the town being an off-taker of that local net metering project, I've been working with Steve Mayer of the Energy Committee and Jeremy Gildren, a Vermont Law School student and member of the Vermont Law School Energy Clinic, to explore net metering options for the town. While we have mapped out a game plan for exploring currently identified options, including but not limited to Southridge Solar, EDF Renewables, Foster Brothers, and other Acorn projects, there remains a considerable amount of work to do before we'll have a framework or strategy to recommend to the board. That said, as the premium paid for solar power is scheduled to decrease on July 1st, 2018, developers are pushing to submit applications for certificates of public good to the Public Service Board before the July 1st deadline. Charlie Kirker would like to list the town as a solar off-taker on their certificate of public good for the Southridge Solar Project, and Peck Electric has submitted a proposal for installing a solar array on the recreation center with no upfront cost and a 5% reduction in the cost of electricity for the town offices. Under Peck's recent proposal, the town would keep the renewable energy credits, which would allow the town offices to be labeled net zero rather than net zero ready, as it is today. Both Southridge and Peck would like a response from the town, but without additional research on net metering options, Steve, Jeremy, and I are not in a position to make a recommendation to the board at this time. I met again with Jeremy Gildren yesterday, and his recommendation is that we go forward once we have a framework with a request for proposals to developers so that we can compare apples to apples. So we'll leave it at that. Southridge Solar Access Road, as Charlie Kirker mentioned when he appeared before the board to request the town's endorsement as a preferred solar site for its application for a certificate of public good. He and his team have been working on road access to the proposed solar array, and their latest concept is outlined in Charlie's June 6th email, which is included in your packet and depicted on an updated site map from Charlie. He asked me to make you aware of that.
Questions of Kathleen?
One quick one, back to the insurance bidding. Wasn't there a type of insurance that we didn't bid out last year that we were going to bid this year that was different than what we had asked for bids on last year?
I'll have to refresh my memory on that.
Or am I not? It's very possible that I'm not remembering correctly.
Okay. I'll double check the other.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you.
On the installation of the solar area on the recreation center, is that the rooftop thing?
Mm-hmm.
So after doing all those things, you're saving only 5%? Is that it?
Right, that's included in part of the recommendation because I discussed particularly that proposal with Jeremy, and he thought that that was a little bit light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But there's no cost to us for the installation. But I think Kathleen's right, we don't have anything to compare it to.
Right, that's what I'm, but 5% seems very menial to save on a huge project like that.
I have no idea. But
There's
doesn't
no,
cost us
there's no
anything.
real incentive to do that, right?
Well, it's why you see off-site solar development, just as we did for this, because you really need a lot of solar to offset a building's electric. That's a high electric user, like the rec center. But something is better than nothing. You know, I guess we just have to decide if that's the right place for that chunk of money. We could go to a smaller building. Maybe it's, I don't know, the teen center, or the pool, or some other smaller building.
But we are adding another structure on top of our building to save that much, right? So would that affect the building, the life of the building?
So those are exactly the questions that we're grappling with now. Where do we want the solar? What are the pros and cons of the different possible locations as we develop an RFP?
Yeah. But it's better to get something rather than nothing. Gives us something to build on, you know, so even if it's 40,000 toward a larger project,
I
we would
think
have.
we should go solar. I like I like that idea, but the saving should be more than what they're offering, or is that all that's available? Is that the standard? I don't know.
That is not the standard.
Yeah,
So.
and-
I think a basis for comparison is a great spot to start, though. At least we are exploring it and developing some standards that we would like to judge the projects on.
We're very fortunate that Jeremy Gildren, who is a student with the Vermont Law School and part of their energy team, is available this summer to help us out as an intern, exploring the options and helping us develop the RFP and evaluate it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, board member concerns. Linz?
Nothing here, thanks.
Laura?
I have a few bees.
What?
Not as in bumblebees, no. Well, beauty. Look at the beauty we have downtown. You know, it's really great, like what the Better Middlebury Partnership and Neighbors Together have created on the fence with the art, and of course all the beautiful floral that we see downtown to just help beautify things during this construction project. I really appreciate it. It's just gorgeous, colorful, beautiful, you know, so I really appreciate that. My other B is buses, again, you know, so on next Thursday, June 21st, it's Dump the Pump Day, and so it's an opportunity to try the bus. Again, another chance. It's fare-free, and this is a nationally recognized day to really try to not use your car and try the bus. So if you ride the Actor bus, early morning commuters can get a free umbrella. You know, you can also try the bigger buses up to Burlington or down to Rutland for free, so it's fare free. And then later that night at 5:30, Actor will be receiving input on some scheduled changes to improve routes. So they're going to be adding another route to Virgins, a midday route, which would really help people that are trying to get in between those two. So I'm just saying this more for our viewers, that they have an opportunity to give some feedback on those schedule changes. And they're hoping to publish the schedule sooner, like in sync with the beginning of the school year rather than in October or November. So
So what day is this?
it's Thursday, June 21st, so next Thursday. And finally, broken stuff. So at the high school this Saturday from 9:30 to 1:30, you can go to the Repair Cafe that's being hosted by the transfer station, bring your broken stuff, and you can be taught how to repair it. So lamps, electronics, you know, whatever. And so it's just an opportunity to give stuff a new life rather than put it into the dump.
When was that?
It's on Saturday, this Saturday.
I had brought this idea in front of the Parks and Rec committee, and somehow it didn't fly. Charlotte started this last year.
A repair
They had a
cafe.
repair cafe, yeah. I think it's a fantastic program.
Yeah.
You bring anything broken in your house, like a broken sewing machine or something, you bring it and somebody knowledgeable can help you fix it.
Plugs, vacuums. you
Yeah,
know,
and there'll be more vacuums than anything else, I guess.
Holes in socks, who knows, you know?
Okay.
So we
Heather?
already mentioned it, but I just have to recognize Public Works staff and management for multiple things. The sidewalk paintings look fabulous. The paving project on, down here, all the work preparing for infrastructure last week, so I just wanted to say I'm appreciative of their staff and their hard work and all they're doing, so.
Did we change the format of the painting? Is it a different process? They looked a little bit different. Maybe it's just the shade of paint. I didn't
Are
know.
you talking about the crosswalks?
Yes.
That would be a question.
I don't remember them being painted every year before, but it
Yeah.
really has popped. And a lot of
popped,
people
and
have
It caught my eye too.
recognized it.
Just looked different, but it could be just the color of the paint. It's so fresh. It looked nice.
It could be a different color, I don't know, but
Yeah.
we have good staff and they're doing a good job and so, thank you.
Nick?
Let me throw a fourth B in there. Bear. Many of you know, we've had a number of sightings of a bear sow and her 3 cubs, one being 2 doors down from my house in Brookside a couple days ago. And while they're fascinating animals to watch and there's a fun aspect, we flock all toward them when we're disrupting their existence, and it's potentially harmful to the animals. But as I learned in my Park Service work when I had to go through bear interaction training, is they can be really dangerous really fast. And if that sow has any perception that you're threatening their cubs, she can be really mean really quick, and we don't want any of our citizens hurt through basically not very wise action. So it's fun, as much fun as they are to see. Respect the distance and stay away from them. If you do have obviously a sighting of them, it's best to report to the police department so that they can help to cordon off the area and keep it safe for everybody. So just please respect that, because we don't want to see anybody getting hurt, and it can happen so fast.
Farhad?
Yeah, a real shout out to Nancy Malcolm, Karen Dugue, and Amy Ryan for doing all the things they're doing for Neighbors Together. Art on the Fence is one example, Experience Middlebury. So they have, I don't know where they get all the energy from, but they're doing great things. I haven't been able to participate much because of Ramadan. I've been so tired and everything, but I have to appreciate what they're doing. And Middlebury High School graduate, congratulations.
No comment.
Victor, no comment? Okay, we had, what do we have? Beauty, broken stuff, buses, and bears. Now it's gonna be gone. And so with that, we need, okay, and we need to move into executive session for contract discussion. If somebody could lead us into that, please.
I closed my script.
I can.
Thank you.
In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of a pending contract negotiation clearly place the select board at a substantial disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its litigation strategy if it discusses the pending contract negotiation in public.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss the pending contract negotiation under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. All right, so we're entering executive session at 8:40.